Letting everybody in. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We've got some folks still joining into the call here and connecting to audio. So give it just a second. Thank you all for joining us on this cloudy Monday afternoon. All right. So as people are getting connected, I just want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping things. Primarily, you'll notice that you're, well, first of all, thank you for joining us on behalf of the Dallas Public Library. My name is Jordan. I'll be monitoring the chat and watching this excellent program. You'll notice that your cameras and microphones will be disabled. That's so that we can focus on the content that our presenter is providing to us today. If you do have any questions, though, as the program goes on, you can put those in the chat box. And we'll address those when we get to the appropriate time for that. With that being said, I'll pass it over to Nedra, who's going to introduce our speaker for today. Tell us about rain barrels.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. And we're very excited to continue our partnership with the Dallas Public Library to present this free program. My name is Nedra Richard Morgan, and I work for the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Our division is one of over 70 city departments and divisions within the city of Dallas, and our day-to-day focus is on environmental activities, processes, programs, and major plans such as the Comprehensive Environmental Climate Action Plan, also known as CCAP, and our Urban Agriculture Plan. Our program range from A to Z, air quality to waste conservation to zero waste. I would also like to mention a fun citywide program that is currently happening. It's free and easy. It's a free and easy way to show support for Dallas and its importance to conserve water by participating in the Wildland National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. It runs through April 30th. You can take the pledge today and every day to the end of the month at www.mywaterpledge.com. I will also drop a link to the pledge site during today's program. What a perfect day for this topic of rain barrels. Although the rain has kept us waiting this spring, it's great to have it as a background for today's topic. The OEQS department has had the pleasure of working with Helen because she was a city employee for 17 years. Sorry, I'm not sure what has happened. Okay, sorry about that. Not sure what happened to my screen. So Helen was an employee with the city for 17 years. Helen actually helped start the popular Grow With Us program as she hosted it along with our friends at the Dallas Public Library for 2 years. During Helen's tenure at the city of Dallas, Helen worked in Dallas Water Utilities, and she was instrumental in developing training materials and many programs there. She was part of the team in the OEQS that started the Earth Day celebration for the city of Dallas. And today, that event is called EarthX, managed by Trammell Crow and his, I don't know what keeps happening to my screen, it keeps darkening. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that again. So the EarthX is managed by Trammell Crow and his team. EarthX has been the largest Earth Day celebration in the US. The city of Dallas sadly bid Helen's farewell in 2021 as she took on a new role with the North Texas Municipal Water District as their water resource and public education manager. Helen is passionate about sustainable living and gardening. She is a Dallas County Master Gardener, and her spirited and energetic style of living and speaking is sure to help us. Oh my gosh, why is this happening? Sure to help us to incorporate a new sustainable practice. I'm just having all sorts of issues this morning. Sorry about that.
Hey,
it's sure to help us to incorporate a new.
Started.
Okay, well, with all of my technical issues, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Helen, where I can figure out what's going on my side. So thank you, Helen, and welcome back to the program.
No worries. It's great to be here. Thank you so much. All right. So Jordan and Nedra, how does that look?
Looks great.
That looks great on my side.
All right. Thank you. All right. So also I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I am very excited to talk to you about the basics of rain barrels. I don't need to say, but I do need to say that I am not a professional rain harvester. This is an introductory class, and I'm going to talk to you about rain barrels for small scale residential use. I'm sharing my personal experience, lessons learned, and what I've done in my own backyard. There's a lot more you can do with rain barrels and rainwater that we won't cover today, nor do I have the expertise on. But let's have some fun. All right, so today we're going to talk about what a rain barrel is, why you should use a rain barrel, some considerations you need to make when you want to install a system on your property. We'll go over a few tips and FAQ. I'm going to share some resources with you. And then we're actually going to do some do-it-yourself examples, and I'm going to take you in my backyard and let you see my rain barrel system. So what is a rain barrel? When I first asked this question, we're all thinking the same thing. A rain barrel is something that holds water so that we can use it later. But rain barrels are more than that. They are simple and inexpensive ways to conserve water, to reduce runoff, and to keep our waters clean. During the hot Texas summers, outdoor water use can increase up to 50%, but rain barrels can lower our outdoor water use when we need to conserve water the most. We've all seen how much rain runs off of our yards when we have a fierce Texas thunderstorm, like last night, or even from lawn sprinkler systems. That runoff can pick up pollution from our neighborhoods and carry it into nearby creeks, which flow into area lakes and rivers. Let's touch on each of these just briefly. So one reason we conserve water is because of the threat of drought. There are different governmental organizations that work strictly on drought. They have a website, drought.gov, and they're on social media. In fact, drought.gov tweeted a quote that we can all relate to. Texas is a land of perennial drought, broken by the occasional devastating flood. It may be raining now, but our area is still in a drought. You can see from this map from Saturday, April 23rd, that our area is either in a moderate or a severe drought. Spring is the rainiest time of year for North Texas, but we all know it only takes a couple of hot, dry months with no rain, and we are back in drought. But if you collect rainwater, you can have access to water during times of extreme drought, and you're not straining our potable water system, which means there's still more water for public health and safety. Now, stormwater is something we all experienced last night. We had a bunch of rains come through, and stormwater is just another word for rainwater. When it rains in our neighborhoods, a lot of that rain flows over hard surfaces and comes in contact with good and bad things. Man-made structures prevent the rainfall from staying on our properties. It prevents the rain from being filtered through natural processes, and it prevents it from soaking into our soils where plants can use it later. Stormwater runoff can pick up bacteria and pet waste, lawn chemicals, litter, and other things seen in this diagram. However, if you capture rainwater at your home, you reduce the amount of runoff that leaves your property, which reduces the amount of pollution that can enter our waterways. So why use rain barrels? Besides conserving water when we need it most, you're also helping to reduce erosion on your property. You've seen or may have seen in other areas where rain cascades off a roof and digs a hole in the yard. You're losing a lot of soil, and that soil ends up in creeks and lakes. When this happens to thousands of homes across North Texas, that is a lot of lost soil and a lot of soil ending up in water bodies where it's not needed. Not to mention, if some of the soil was exposed to herbicides or fertilizers, those chemicals are now in our lakes and rivers. Besides rain barrels being the superheroes at saving water and preventing pollution, they also save you money. Why pay to water your garden with tap water when you can collect hundreds of gallons at the fraction of the cost? And also, I bet you didn't know this, a recent survey showed that 10 out of 10 plants prefer rainwater over tap water. Rainwater has no added chemicals. It's usually soft and free of dissolved minerals. This untreated water is great for your indoor plants, your garden, your lawn, and even your bird bath. You can even use the water from your barrels on a wildlife watering station. Having water in your landscape is one of the key features to bring wildlife to your yard. Not only that, providing a water source can actually protect your vegetable garden. Keep a full bird bath near your garden, especially during the summer, because thirsty birds will be less likely to peck your tomatoes for water if you provide a clean water source for them. So now you're ready to add rain barrels to your landscape. What are some things you need to think about? Well, first, are you going to buy a rain barrel or are you going to make your own? This will impact the amount of time needed and the cost of your project. The cost may impact the size of the system that you can have. You can also connect rain barrels, especially the ones that you make yourself, together fairly easily. And I'm sure there are store-bought rain barrels that you can connect together if you're handy. You can make this happen. You can also have several rain barrels hooked together, or you can have several rain barrels just around your house. I have several downspouts, each with a single rain barrel. But going back to what you're going to do, the size of your system will influence where you put your system. So you got to think about where your rain barrels will live. And this is really important because you won't be able to move them until they're empty. A full rain barrel will weigh 400 to 500 pounds. The barrels will also need to be near a gutter or a downspout, or under a corner of your roof where water can fall directly into it. So also consider, where will you be using that water? Can you put your barrel near where you will be watering the most? If not, is it an easy walk to carry the water to where you need it? Do you want to use a hose? You can use a pump and a hose to pump your water to where you want it. But keep in mind, you're going to need access to electricity or a really long extension cord. And lastly, you want an area that is flat and big enough for the number of barrels you want to have. All right, so rain barrel maintenance, honestly, it's not as hard as this guy's making. What you need to do is basically scrub and rinse. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension recommends using a cleaning solution of 1/8 of a cup of bleach to 5 gallons of water, or a 1/4 cup of Castile soap and vinegar to 5 gallons of water. You can use that inside to clean out your rain barrel. You want to scrub it with that solution and then rinse it with clean water. You probably only need to do this once a year, and the best time is when your rain barrels are empty. You also take this time to check your barrel, the hoses and pipes for any leaks or cracks, and repair and replace those as needed. Also, if you have any screening on your rain barrel, check those for tears and replace and repair as needed. Because those screens, if you have breaks in your screens, that's how mosquitoes can get in. Okay, so these are just a few tips if you want to make your own rain barrel. We'll cover more when we go outside. So you want to use a food grade barrel that has never held any chemicals. You also want to try to use a dark colored barrel. That will keep sunlight from getting inside and growing algae in the water. If you do have a light colored or white barrel, all you need to do is paint it. Then it could become a piece of art and a focal point in your garden. You also want to make sure that you elevate or lift your barrels up high. That's going to help increase the pressure, the water pressure, so that when you turn on the spout, the water flows out much faster. And it's also going to help you if you want to attach hoses, and you have to have room to put your bucket or watering can underneath. So it's best to elevate those barrels. Also, I learned this the hard way. Fill up your rain barrel and test it for leaks before the first rain. The last thing you want to do is walk outside after rain and you're so excited that your barrel's full of water and it's leaking and it's so heavy you can't fix it. So make sure you test it before that first rain. Also, gutters. So gutters can be the most expensive part to rain barrels. The barrels themselves are usually not that expensive, especially if you make your own. However, having a company come in to install gutters to your home, that can be expensive. But don't let that stop you. You can use a rain chain that you see in the first picture, and I'll show you one outside. So it's literally a way to help guide the water from your roof directly into your barrel. Also, I touched on it just briefly, mosquito dunks. Invest in some mosquito dunks. These are great to put into your rain barrel to kill the mosquito larvae. So mosquitoes lay their eggs in water, and so rain barrels are something that they're looking for. As much as you try with screens and different things like that, they're pretty sneaky and they could find their way in. So add some mosquito dunks into your barrels. There are instructions on the back of the package that explain the frequency and the quantity. And they're real simple. You just break them apart, you drop them in your rain barrel, and they have a bacterium in it that targets the mosquito larvae. So then your water is still safe to use in your garden, in your bird baths, and for different things like that. All right, now these are just a few FAQs, and we'll go over a lot more when we go outside. So let's do the first one. What is the best way to make a rain barrel? There are so many ways to make a rain barrel. Try a way that sounds good to you and then improve on it. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to use a barrel. You can use a big trash can. There's also lots of other containers that you can use. And don't be afraid to tweak recommendations. Remember, these are just recommendations. This means you can customize your barrel and your system to fit your landscape and your needs. The most important thing is that you're collecting water to use it, because the cheapest water is the water that falls from the sky. All right, so how much water can I collect from my roof? So there are calculations you can do to estimate how much water you can collect, and you can also estimate how much rain it will take to fill up your system. One calculation I found said that if your roof is 1,200 square feet, so basically 30 feet by 40 feet, and there is a 1-inch rainstorm, that's 700 gallons of runoff from your roof. Another way to look at it is that every square foot of roof space collects about half a gallon of water during a 1-inch rain. So that's, one more time, that's every square foot of roof space collects half a gallon of water from a 1-inch rain. Okay, so this is something interesting. First flush. What do you do about first flush, and do you need a diverter? So a roof naturally collects dust, leaves, twigs, bird droppings, and other airborne residue. Just like stormwater pollution that we talked about earlier, these things are carried in rainwater and into your rain barrel, and that's what the first flush is. So if we haven't had a rain in a while, there's going to be a bunch of residue on your roof. When it does rain, all of that stuff is going to be in that first flush of rain that enters your barrel. So many rain barrel guides will recommend to divert that first flush of water so contaminants do not enter your barrels. And that is done with a diverter. And there are a few pictured here. The first photo, and I apologize that it's hard to see, there is a black pipe that the first flush goes into. So how this one works is the water comes down the tube or the spout or your downspout, and it's going to go into your tube, and then it's going to fall into a standpipe. So it's basically a pipe with a cap on it. Some recommendations I saw is that should be anywhere from 1 to 2 gallons. That pipe needs to hold 1 to 2 gallons, and you can put a cap on the bottom so that mosquitoes can't enter. And then once this first pipe is full, the water is going to continue past that pipe and then into your rain barrel. So that's an example of a homemade diverter, but you do need to remember that you need to go in there and empty that out. So you have to be able to have some sort of access, unscrew the lid or have a lid that you can open to drain that out after the rain because you don't want that water just sitting there. All right, so the second diverter that you see is that black thing on the white drain pipe. That is one that you can buy, and it has an internal mechanism that will divert the first flush for you. And then the last one is another one that you can buy, but this one is manually operated. So that means that you go outside during the rain and open it up so that first flush flows out of that little chute. And then when you're satisfied that the first flush is gone, you flip it back up and it closes, and then all the water will go into your barrel. All right, our last FAQ for right now. Can I use harvested water from my roof to water my vegetables? All right, so if you are doing this on your property, putting the water on your own vegetables and you're not selling the vegetables, then yes. There is some research that shows that the water is safe for food crops, especially if you apply that water to the soil and not directly onto the plant. And those same studies recommend those studies recommend not to use the water on leafy greens. So many things that I read point to the fact that the soil is a great filter. If you pour that water onto the soil and not directly onto the plant, you're good. And that's what I personally do. Now, if you're concerned about all that stuff that's in the first flush, or maybe you're concerned about bird waste and E. coli, you can buy and install a UV filter from a home improvement store. So the filter uses UV light to kill germs like E. coli. And then what you do in that case is that the water will flow from your barrel through the UV filter, and it looks like a silver tube or a silver pipe. And then you can connect that to a hose, and then you can use the hose to fill a bucket. These filters are about $100, $125, and they do require electricity. And so this is if you want to try to use your water for some other things besides like putting them on plants, and especially if you're thinking about trying to make a system where you can use rainwater for maybe you have a hunting cabin or something like that. This is something you really, really need to do. If you want to use that water, like I said, any other way besides just watering plants, you really need to look into a UV filter and some other filters. But if you're just doing this for your own use in your own property and your own garden, you can use rainwater on your vegetables. Now, if you're in a school garden though, there are some different rules from that. And I think you have to use that UV filter if you're in a school garden. Now, I will have a slide that have some resources on it. I think it's actually the very next slide. And there's information on this topic so you can make your own decision. The most important thing is you need to do with what you are most comfortable with. So speaking of those resources, these are some that I found really informative and really valuable. So the Brazos County Master Gardeners have a water conservation page, and it focuses primarily on rainwater harvesting. This page has a lot of videos where they talk about how to make a rain barrel. They actually have like a 15-minute video that takes you from start to finish on how to use one of the 55-gallon drums to make a rain barrel. They also have a video on how to make one out of a trash can. And this is where you're going to find more information and some videos talking about those filters. And if you want to collect rain from, let's say, your greenhouse and use it on your plants inside your greenhouse, if you want to provide wildlife water, or if you actually want to try to provide water for a hunting cabin. You can find all of that at the Brazos County Master Gardeners Water Conservation page. If you're interested in a fun and quick video on how to harvest rainwater through a rain barrel, visit the Water is Awesome YouTube page, and there is a video on how to make a barrel, and it's really fun and cute. Now, if you're interested in that recipe on how to clean your rain barrel and a little bit of a summary of the studies that I mentioned about using harvested rainwater on edibles, there is a easy to read brochure from the Sightline Institute. And if you want to get into those studies about applying harvested water to vegetable gardens, there was a study from Rutgers University, and there's a link to that. If you want to have a manual on how to harvest rainwater, and this is quite an extensive manual, it's like 50 pages. There is one called the Texas Manual on Rainwater Harvesting, and that's from the Texas Water Development Board. And lastly, I just wanted to share the link from the Dallas County Master Gardeners, because that's the group that I'm a part of, and they do a lot of cool things and also provide a lot of resources. And it's a great organization to join if you're interested in this kind of stuff. So this is my last slide before we transition outside. And I just wanted to give you a brief photographic tour of my rain barrel systems that I had. So I knew rain barrels were great for conserving water and not using potable water on my vegetation. However, I quickly realized that one barrel was not enough for me. Neither were 4 barrels. So now I have 10. I've become the cat lady of rain barrels. I even have put gutters in to feed rain from my house and my shed directly into my barrels. I use the rainwater just about every day during the summer, especially on my container gardens and potted plants. I am really glad that I have access to rainwater anytime that I want. I encourage you to try it. And you too may discover that it's hard to have just one. All right, so that concludes the presentation portion. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to turn off my camera just briefly, and we're going to transition outside. And I'm going to go over some of the barrels I have in my system. I'm going to go over a rain barrel kit, a very common kit that you can purchase at home improvement stores. I'm just going to briefly explain how you use that kit. And I'm going to show you my big system with these barrels all connected together and talk to you a little bit about how we installed it. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions, okay? So hold on with me 1 second, please.
While Helen is transitioning, we saw that there was a question in the chat about a program to get rain barrels at a discount. Nedra, thanks for your answer. Just for those who didn't see, there are classes offered through City of Dallas Water Conservation that offers purchase for a rain barrel. And then there's a link in the chat for anybody who wants to check that out.
Hi, everybody. I hope, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
That's what helps my talk, right? Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my really muddy and wet backyard on this surprisingly cold spring day. So this is one of the rain barrels I have in my system. This is one that I purchased. And I've had this one for a long, long time. You can probably see that it's a little, faded from the sun. And also it's a little swollen because it is super full. So I do have my gutter plumbed directly to pour into my rain barrel. This rain barrel is very simple. It has this lid here, and there are holes right here. And there's screening. That screening is to help prevent mosquitoes from going inside. So literally the rain just falls here. You don't even need to have a gutter. You can have, if you had something else where even if the water cascaded off of your roof and fell in here, it would still fill up this barrel. And then something else that you'll see a lot of barrels have is what's called an overflow. So on this one, there is a hole drilled into the top of the rain barrel. So last night when we had all of that rain, it was more water than the barrel could hold. So there's water. Actually, you can probably see down here on the sidewalk that you can't see. Okay, there is a trail of water on my patio where the water flowed out of the barrel. So a lot of times just about every store-bought rain barrel will have an overflow. You can put an overflow on your barrel, and if you do, that's fantastic. But if you don't, a lot of times what will happen is the water will just come out of the top. So you'll literally have overflow coming right out of the top of the barrel when your barrel gets full. Now, for mosquitoes, we talked about those mosquito dunks, right? So mosquito dunks are easily and commonly available. They have the instructions on the back on the quantity and frequency that you need to apply these. And so what I do is I just break off the recommended amount and I just drop it in my rain barrel. Because in this system, there is not a screen over this overflow hole. So mosquitoes could enter this way. Can you glue screening on your overflow? Absolutely, you can do that. And that can be one way you can prevent mosquitoes or try to prevent mosquitoes. Now, how do you access this one? Well, this one comes with a tube, a hose down here. And all you do is there's a little, okay, so it has a hose down here at the bottom. And you just open up the valve and you can use it to fill up your bucket or your watering can. So that's pretty easy. But I can tell you, I am very, very impatient. And so I don't like that method. I literally just take a bucket and I scoop my water out and then I use that bucket to water all of my container plants. So that's how I access my rain barrel. So next, we're going to talk about the kit that you can purchase to make your own rain barrel. So they come in, this is an example of one of them. This is just a kit we picked up at a home improvement store that anybody can use to make a rain barrel. What's nice is it does come with some detailed instructions, and also it comes with all the hardware and accessories you need. That includes all of the drill bits that you will, so you do need a drill, but it comes with all of these saws, these hole saws that you can use to cut into your barrel. So we're going to use our little barrel, our little mini rain barrel here as our example. So it will come with a thing for a drain. So if you ever have to drain your barrel to do repairs, it comes with that. So you cut the side of your barrel, you install the first piece, and then you screw in the drain, and then you screw on the cap. Then it also has a part for your spigot. So it will actually come with a plastic spigot. And what you're going to do is you're going to use one of those saws. You're going to cut out the hole. You push in this first piece, and then you literally just screw the spigot in. Now you can add plumber's tape to this to get a better seal, but it does have this rubber here to try to make a good seal. So you can give it a try. If it leaks, then you can add some plumber's tape, or just add some plumber's tape to it so that you get that really good seal. How does the water get in? So what you do is on the top, you're going to cut a hole and you put in this insert. And then this kit comes with this flexible tube. So this part is going to insert into your gutter. And this comes with a built-in diverter in it that I talked about earlier. Okay, so what happens is, so this will go into your gutter like this, but what happens is there's this large hole in the center. So that first flush, a lot of the water will actually fall through the big hole, and then the other water is going to collect along this lip, and then that feeds through the tube and then goes into your rain barrel. So that's how they incorporated a diverter into their collection hose. So, and you'll notice that this is very soft and flexible. That's going to come in handy later. So you're going to have your gutter. You're going to use one of those templates and you're going to saw a round hole into your gutter. And then you're going to take your tube, you're going to squish it, and you're going to insert it into that hole you just drilled. And then it's going to fit in just like this. So you can see it's sized perfectly for our standard gutters, and it'll fit in like this. And then this part inserts into the top of your barrel. And so this is a nice, simple way to have all of the parts together and to use them to create your first rain barrel. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna swing on over here to our system. This is my homemade system that my husband and I made. We've had it since about 2013, and it's worked for us really, really well. Probably in all of that time, I've only used all of the water. I'd say maybe run out of water 2 or 3 times. And we've had some pretty bad droughts here in North Texas, and that's when I ran out of water. All right, so you can see that our system is a little bit non-traditional. We do have the traditional barrels, however, we flipped them upside down. So what we did is the barrels come with 2 holes in them already. We decided we didn't want to cut a whole bunch of holes in our barrels, so we wanted to use the existing holes. So you can use standard 2-inch PVC piping that you can get at any home improvement store. You can use your pipe, you put a fitting on here, and you can see it screws directly into the existing bung hole on your barrel. So that's the approach we took to make our system. And so the interesting thing about this system is it's in series or in a manifold. So what that means is that as all the barrels fill up with water at the same time, and they all empty at the same time. So this creates several benefits. One of them is that we get really good pressure because we have a lot of pressure coming out. To achieve that pressure, it is really important that you drill air holes in each of your barrels to allow the air to escape so the water can come out. So if you're not having really good pressure, try that and see if that helps. So you can see that I have the gutter that comes right here, and we have a hole cut into the top. This one fills up, the water travels through the pipe, it fills up all of the other barrels too. And we did elevate our barrels like I talked about. And this, adding this stepping stone piece is a newer addition. It gave us a lot more stability because remember I talked about how those barrels can weigh 400 to 500 pounds. And when you have a lot of them together, we needed that extra stability. Also, you might have a wonderful little pound puppy and your little dog likes to go back here, dig little holes and lay in them in the hot summer. And that can kind of like, destabilize your area. And so you need to have that really good, strong base. Also, something else to think about are those overflows I talked about. So like on the other rain barrel, there was an overflow hole. Well, if you have an overflow, when it's really draining out, it can actually cause a little bit of erosion at the base of your rain barrel. So that's something you want to think about on your overflow. So some people literally have a pipe or a hose that's connected and they can direct that water somewhere else and it won't cause any erosion. You could have it directed into a rain garden. You could have it directed, somewhere else on your property. Maybe you have it directed into another container so that you can capture that water too. So that's something else to think about is your overflow. Will your overflow cause any sort of erosion or damage to the base of your rain barrel system? All right, so how well does our system work? I think it works pretty well. So the water comes out pretty quickly. I have plenty of room for buckets and watering cans, and I can even fit a 5-gallon bucket underneath here. So I really enjoy that flexibility, and elevating your system gives you that flexibility. Earlier, we talked about the cost prohibitive factor of gutters, and I mentioned the rain chain. So this is an example of a rain chain. This one is a nice, pretty decorative one. And they come, I purchased this. And they have all different shapes and styles and colors. And they also, you can buy them at craft fairs and different things. You can even make your own. You can actually even use a regular chain. It just needs to be kind of big. And the bigger they are, the heavier they are. So you have to make sure you can support that weight. But it's just a simple device that would actually, you would put this right over the opening of your rain barrel. So we're going to talk a little bit about the openings for rain barrels. And I am going to grab my pots. So I'll be right back.
As we're continuing on our tour, don't forget to put any questions that you might have in the chat, and we'll get to them when we get a moment.
All right, yes, this is a great time to be typing in your questions. All right, so when you cut the opening into your rain barrel, when you want to make your own system, there are several different things that you can do. So the most important thing is that you want to keep those mosquitoes out, and you probably want to keep out leaves and other debris. So one of the easiest things to do is to trace a hole and cut it out, cut a piece of mesh screening. You can take this and you literally glue it on top. You want to use a really, really strong adhesive, like a commercial grade, or some sort of really strong caulk to keep this screen in place. If you want to try something different, you can take something like a bucket and cut out the bottom. So you have like a sleeve or a cylinder. You can lay your screening on top, and then you push it right in. So you want to also make sure you use that bucket to trace the hole, so your hole is a nice snug fit. Now, if this is not the look you're going for, there are some other options. Get a couple of flower pots. You want to trace that size on top of your barrel and cut it out. And when you get to choose your flower pots. They can be any color, any design, any decor that you want. So you're going to insert your first flower pot, take a piece of screen, lay that inside, then take your second flower pot and put it right on top. So you have your screen nestled between the two pots. The pots have holes in them that allow the water to flow through. And you have the screen in there to keep out mosquitoes. And the pots also help you collect any debris or things like that. And it's easy to remove these, clean them out if you need to, replace them. And you can also replace the pots if they start getting worn. So those are some real easy ways to protect your rain barrel system from mosquitoes and make sure that you have plenty of water that enters in. All right, so how are we doing on questions?
We have one so far. Can we use rainwater to fill a pool? Can we use it for like pool maintenance purposes?
Can you use rainwater on your pool? So I do know
Yeah,
you
correct.
can use rainwater in your pond. So we actually have a pond. And just the other day, we hooked up a hose and we use it to fill up our pond. And because our system is elevated, we didn't have to use a pump. And so for pool maintenance, there is some debris and sometimes even some discoloration that will come from your rain barrel system. So like right now, all the oak trees are dropping all of that brown stuff, the pollen and stuff like that. And if that gets into your system, your water will have a brown tint to it. It's not dangerous or anything like that, but I don't know if you want that in your pool.
Very good. All right, they're starting to roll in. Can you explain how the water chain collects water to the tank without gutters?
Yes, the rain chain. So what happens is you want to put this in a part of your roof where you have like a corner where water kind of already falls, and you're going to be able to find that spot by that depression or hole underneath it, and so what happens is that it'll help guide the water into the top of your rain barrel. And so it doesn't necessarily grab the water off your roof, it helps to guide it. So it's great to put in an area that you already have some water that comes down.
All right. How often do you recommend adding mosquito dunks?
The mosquito dunks, I'm trying to remember, on the package, it actually has the frequency directions. I want to say it's like monthly or something like that, but it's on the package. And of course, mosquitoes, so they're most active, during the hot summers. And the mosquito larvae need about 5 to 7 days to hatch out of the water. So you do need to try to keep on top of it. And of course, adding screens and different things to keep the mosquitoes in from the first place is a great way to go. Oh, something else that I know some people have tried, I personally have not tried, is that they've actually added mosquito fish into their rain barrel. And so they actually had live fish that eat mosquito larvae living in their rain barrels. I'm not exactly sure how successful that was, because you're going to have to also supplement their feed, especially in times where we don't have mosquitoes, like in the winter. But that's something to try.
Very cool. Do you move the gutter to each individual barrel, or how does the system work?
That's that's a really good question. Okay, so on this system right here, the gutter does not move. It is fixed. So it actually comes from the top of my house down the side of the house to right here. And because of this piping here, when this barrel gets full, the water drains into this pipe and actually will travel to the next one and fill up this one and keep on traveling down this way. So the piping doesn't have valves in it that make the water flow in different directions in a way. The water can flow multiple ways wherever it needs to go. And so this is actually fixed. And because these are open here, the water can flow between the barrels. Now, something about that, which is a great question, is maintenance on this. So something that we learned after we did this the first time was if you have a problem in one barrel in the middle and you have, it's hard to work on it. So we had to come back in and install shut-off valves so that we can shut off parts of our system, perhaps drain a barrel to do some repairs. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a repair right in the middle barrel, not on one of the end barrels that you can easily get to. So if you want to do a system like this, it's really important to put some shut-off valves in there so that you can disconnect pieces to work on. This thing in the back.
Yeah.
What is that?
Something I can drain more easily.
Okay, so, all right, sorry about that, guys. We're coming back shortly. Yes. We'll be right with you. All right, just use your hand. There you go. Okay, so I have my husband here as my cameraman, and remember, we're not professionals at this. So something else that we did was when we need to do some repairs or work on the system, we have the shut-off valves. You still might have a lot of water in these barrels. So we added this so we can unscrew it to drain out, like for example, so we can shut off the water here. These two barrels are isolated from the rest of the system. I can still use water from the other 4 or 5 barrels over here. But if we need to do repairs, we open this, the water can drain out of just these 2 barrels so that we can do those repairs. So speaking of repairs, some of the weird things that have happened. So during one time we used all of the water. We purposely did it because we wanted to, to do some work and some repairs on it. And the system was empty. It's been really windy this month, right? Well, when we did this, it wasn't this year. It was another time. It got so windy. I couldn't believe it. This whole system fell over. The wind like knocked it over. And so, so if you empty out your system so that it doesn't follow the wind or anything else. Winterization. So our system is really sheltered. It's next to our house and it's also next to our shed. So it's nice and sheltered. And so even during Winter Storm Uri, I could see that the water inside was frozen, but we had 0 damage. We didn't have any broken pipes or anything like that. We do use that really thick 2-inch PVC, but even though the water froze, we didn't have any pipe breaks or anything like that. So winterizing, if you're concerned about that, you want to drain your system as much as possible before the winter colds come. And then you can do that yearly maintenance where you clean them and check them for leaks and things like that. And then, keep them that way so that you don't have to worry about freezing. But because we have our system so protected, we don't have a problem with anything freezing. And that goes to the point also, all of our plumbing is out front. If you have your system, if you want to have a big system like this and you have it in a more visible part of your yard, you can actually turn this around so that all your piping is behind the system. So maybe, for aesthetic purposes, you might want to do that. Maybe you want to protect your piping by putting it underneath or behind. The only thing I would say is that you still need to make sure you can access the piping for repairs. Because our system is next to the house, we had to put the piping in the front. And because it is so isolated, the aesthetics weren't as important to us. And so that's something else you can think about is how visible is your piping and how accessible is your piping. So are there any other questions?
Definitely. Is there a local resource to obtain food grade barrels?
All right, so
Did
we're
you-
going to come back here.
They want to know, is there a local resource that you get?
Did you catch that, Ellen?
A local resource for food grade barrels. There are a lot of independent folks who will sell rain barrels as their business. I personally had a personal friend of mine whose father does that. And that's where I purchased my barrels from. There's also different soft drink manufacturers or beverage manufacturers, because a lot of their ingredients come in these barrels and they can be a source of barrels too. So look for those beverage and soft drink manufacturers and see if they will sell food grade barrels to you.
Excellent. How long can you keep collected rainwater and use it on your
Also,
plants?
you can check out things like Craigslist and maybe even Facebook Marketplace.
How long can you keep the rainwater?
How long can you keep the rainwater? That's a really good question. So I've kept mine for a long, long time. I mean, you can imagine this is a lot of water that this system can hold. And like I said, I've only run out of water like 2 or 3 times. So I have noticed, like I said, sometimes some different discoloration in the water because of different things that have come in. Because I don't have a diverter on my system. But I have never come across a time where I was concerned about the quality of the water. It's never smelled bad or anything like that. And so I've never had an issue with water that I was uncomfortable using. And of course, if you have a smaller system, you're going to cycle through your water a lot faster. And so it's probably not going to be a problem unless you install a system and you just kind of forget to use it.
All right. Are you allowed to have barrels outside of your yard, perhaps on the side of your house, visible from the street? Are there any
Gotta
rules or
have barrels
guidelines that
outside
we
your
need to?
yard and then on the street.
Okay. So that's going to depend on your home, your HOA. So the state of Texas did pass a law that residents in the state of Texas can have rain barrels on their property and also solar panels, that HOAs cannot restrict rain barrels and solar panels. However, an HOA can restrict where you put them and what they look like. So I have seen in our neighborhood, I have seen some people have rain barrels on the side of their house. I have not seen anyone have one in the front of their house. I personally have all my rain barrels at the back, and I have a couple more that I'll show you back here. And also the person who had it on the side of their house, they bought a really pretty one, that it wasn't like the blue industrial barrel. So it became, it looked almost like a stone sculpture. And so you need to check with your homeowners association if you have one to see if there's any restrictions. And it's possible your city or something like that could have restrictions, but most likely not.
Okay. Do each of the barrels attached to the manifold need to be slightly graduated height, or should they be level?
Our system was initially made level. Over time, things happen, and it's not as level as it used to be. They do not need to be at a graduated height. That's a really good question. It works if you install it on a level. Another lesson learned from us is we use decomposed granite on our spaces here. And over time, some of it's washed away or it's just turned into dirt, and it does grow a lot of weeds. So if we were to do this over, we would probably use a larger type of, not like pea gravel, but a larger type of decorative rock, whether river rock or even something smaller than that, but definitely something larger than what we have now, because it's just, weeds love it. You could also use mulch. You could just fill this area with mulch, or you can even, if you want to, you could keep it grass, or of course you could also pave it in. That's something we're willing to put a lot of time and effort into our barrels, but not a lot of time and effort into paving the surface here.
Do you mesh the air holes of your barrels?
So yeah, if you could mesh these air holes, but because this is an example of one right here, this is to allow the air to escape, and so the water can come through out the system. And these are simply just drilled into each barrel. And I have not, because I use the mosquito dumps. So I rely heavily on the mosquito dumps for mosquito control. You could mesh these. You would cut a piece of mesh and glue it. it would be really hard to glue it on the inside because, you know, the only opening we have is the bung hole, which is like a 2-inch opening. So it'd be nearly impossible to glue it on the inside. You'd have to glue it on the outside. If aesthetically, if you have no problem with that, I say it's not going to hurt anything at all if you do that. So that would be an option for mosquito control. And also, if you glue it on the outside, you're going to be able to keep an eye on it to see, you know, if it's peeling off or anything like that.
All right. So as for winterization, is there a side of the home that is preferred?
I would say the north side, because of those cold north winds, would be where you would need to be more concerned about winterizing a rain barrel. This is on the south side. This is the south side of our house, and so it is, and it's very protected. And so, yeah, if you have a barrel on the north side, you might want to consider winterizing. You could even wrap it in insulation if you wanted to. Of course, that's going to look different and stuff, but that's an option you have.
So there's a longer question about the different types of pipes for people who are not necessarily like handy. Do you know, is there a good resource that we can direct people to kind of like getting familiar with the kind of PVC and the hardware that you're using for somebody who doesn't have that skill set?
Yes. So one of those resources was the Texas Manual for Rainwater Harvesting. They have a lot of information and even diagrams in there on how to make like those first flush diverters and different piping and things like that to use. So I would look into that. But you know, if you're a little, you know, you're not super skilled in this kind of thing, start with buying a rain barrel. If you can afford one, buy a rain barrel, get comfortable with that. And there are lots of cities that have classes, especially in the summertime when it gets warmer. They're going to have classes where you can make and take your own rain barrel, and different organizations will have those too. So they have all the supplies. You come in and they help you make your own rain barrel. You don't have to have a system where they're all connected like this. You saw I had 2 on my patio that were not connected together. And let's come around the corner here to the back of our shed. So I also had gutters put in on my shed, and you can see that they lead here. So this is a single rain barrel, right? That's here by itself. And this one works great too. So don't feel like you have to put them in series. You can just have multiple rain barrels around your property, and you can also just connect 2 of them together. An easy one that I saw was they had 2 rain barrels, and they used like that flexible accordion tube that came in the kit, and they connected them like here, right here at the top. And it basically served the same purpose. So you don't have to connect 6 or 7 together. You can connect just 2. And of course you can have them just in singles. Now, one tip I will give you is if you're making your own rain barrel and you're not using a kit, and you want to, when you get your spigot, get a little, this kind of connector here to give some distance away from the barrel. And also the threading will fit much better when you screw this metal piece into the plastic piece. You're going to get a better connection than just screwing it directly into the plastic of the barrel. So I do recommend getting this adapter, screwing this adapter into your barrel, then screwing your spigot in. You'll find less leaks happening this way. This one is only elevated up a little bit, so I cannot fit a bucket or watering can underneath it. I can attach a hose if I want, but probably our next project is going to be to, when this is empty, because it's full after last night, is to elevate this higher so it's more useful. Something else I want to show you guys is, could you come a little closer here? So we have the traditional asphalt roofs on our shed. And so we talked about debris that could enter your rain barrel system. So you will get over time some of this debris that can enter your system. And so that's why some of that screening and stuff is really helpful. So on this one is really, really simple. So this one, the water literally hits the top of the rain barrel and flows into the open bunghole. That's all we did on this one. So this one is probably about as simple as you can get. The only thing we did was drill a hole in the bottom and screw in the adapter in the spigot. And there you got a rain barrel. Now, something like this, though, can take a little longer to fill up because, you're restricting the amount of water. And if they're for overflow, it actually overflows the top. I would probably modify this a little bit and add an overflow to it to help with that. but you don't have to. You know, you can look at it as a mosquito that you don't need. So rain barrels can be as complex or as simple as you want them to be. And of course, you always have the option of purchasing one.
Okay. So we have a question. Do you ever treat the water outside of the mosquito treatment? This person is citing like a sulfur smell. I think maybe a couple of folks may have missed the cleaning piece as well from before from some other questions. So you mind just giving us an overview of the cleaning aside from mosquito treatment?
Okay, so we personally, let's try going this way. Okay, so we personally just use our rain barrel water for bird baths and for our gardening. So I use it in my containers for my flowers, and I do use it on my vegetable garden. So all we do is add the mosquito treatment, and I do not, watch out. I do not use the UV filters or reverse osmosis or anything like that because I'm not using the water for shrinking or anything like that. So all I do is use the mosquito treatment, and I do try to rinse out my barrels once a year to get some of that debris out. If you want to use your barrels for something else, look into those UV filters and some reverse osmosis. You can actually get the water safe enough to drink. But it does come with, you have to have equipment and you have to have electricity for that to happen. All I literally do is I fill up my buckets. I walk over here to my vegetable garden and I pour that water on the soil. We talked earlier about how the soil is a great filter to help remove any sort of unwanted things from our plants so that they don't take it up. If you do not feel comfortable using this water on your vegetables that you're going to consume, you don't have to. You can strictly use it on your flowers. You could use it on your trees. You can even use it on your grass. You might have an area of your yard that your sprinklers don't get very well or something like that. You can use this water on your lawn. So there's lots of different ways to use the water. And that's also what you want to take into consideration when you want to think about how many barrels you want. You know, I use this water on lots of different things. So I wanted a system that can collect a lot of water. Not everybody's going to need a system this big. And some people might want a bigger system. And also there's the different kinds of containers. We mentioned like you could use, there are tanks that you can use. There's like the IBC square white totes. You could use something like that. It's just whatever fits your needs and the space you have.
Okay, two identical questions. How did you manage to add your mosquito dunks into the manifold system?
Oh, okay, that's okay. So I literally, I have a hole cut here. Let's go. So my system is so complex that I just have a hole cut into the barrel. The gutter goes right into it. So I literally just drop the mosquito dunks in here. You can definitely put a screen over here. You can, like how I talked about, you can simply just adhere. You can just glue some screening onto the top to keep the mosquitoes out. But that I had to make a personal decision. Did I want to put a screen on here, or did I want to be able to add the dunks in? I chose to have the ability to add the dunks in. So that's why I had to keep it without a screen. If you're super handy, could you rig up something that you could like have it's like a lid where you could open it? Absolutely. You could do something like that. So you have a screen and you can open the screen to add in mosquito dunks. You absolutely can do that.
Awesome. I think we're, yeah, do these freeze? Like is freezing a concern?
Mm-hmm. So during the winter storm, the water level wasn't all the way to the very tip top, but, and also the other thing is I can see in this hole. So I kind of like having this here. So I can actually look inside, and I could, during the winter storm, I could see that it was ice in here. And so it did freeze, but we didn't have any damage from the freeze. So the winterization is something that it's definitely not a bad thing that you drain your barrels out during the winter. It's just sometimes our winters here can be pretty warm. And I just wanted to have access to water even in the winter. So I did not drain my system. But maybe I just got lucky and I didn't have any damage from that winter storm, but it fared just fine. The biggest issue we had is at one time the system was completely empty and it fell over. That was the biggest issue we had.
You mentioned your asphalt roof. Do you do anything to strain the asphalt from the roof?
I do not. I looked at some of those studies, those Rutgers studies, and they actually did some studies that said that the contamination, like when they actually tested the water for contaminants, it was very, very, very low. So I felt comfortable enough to use the water with, coming off my asphalt roof and using that water directly in my garden. But like I said, I do not pour it directly on the plants. I do pour it on the soil. If I get some sediment, so once a year, I will clean the sediment out, especially on those barrels of single barrels I have on my patio. Those are real. The nice thing about those is they're really easy to clean out. They have that huge lid on top. And so I will rinse those out once a year, and some of that sediment does come out. So I actually don't proactively filter it out. I just clean it out on my maintenance phase.
Awesome. We have a question for scale. You have this robust rain gathering system. People want to know how large is the garden you're using this for, or what, your versus
okay.
how much water you gather.
Okay. So here, and I'll show you guys our garden. We have a few worn raised beds, and we have a pretty small vegetable garden. And I also have quite a few containers on my patio and in my front yard too. So I use it mainly so I do have a irrigation system, and it does go off. I only have my irrigation system go off once a week. Even though I'm allowed to water twice a week, I only have it going off once a week. You can have a really nice green lawn by watering half an inch once a week. But that means I have to add supplemental water to my peppers and my tomatoes. So that's when I fill my 5-gallon buckets and I walk over here and I pour my water in. And I have my containers. And if you guys do container gardening in Texas during the summer, a lot of times you have to water twice a day when it gets super duper hot. So I water my flowers twice a day. And then a lot of times, like if I add new plants into my landscape and they need extra water, I use my rainwater. Like I'll fill up a bucket and walk to that plant and pour it directly on that plant to help it establish itself. Because I use a lot of native and adapted plants in my landscape. So they're really water wise. So they don't need as much water as some others. I have used the water on my trees before. If I thought one of my trees was a little stressed or needed a little extra water. And I do have a couple flower beds in the front that sometimes I will supplement with water too. So this is, like I said, I've only run out of water 2 or 3 times since 2013. So this system is plenty big for our needs.
The person who asked the question said they have about a 5,000 foot square garden. Is there any kind of easy, kind of like back of the envelope math they can do? Or does that make sense?
I'm sorry, they have a 5,000 square foot garden and?
Yeah, like I guess how would they calculate, in your opinion, how many barrels they need and that sort of thing?
Oh, so really the limiting factor is your roof space or the runoff surface. That's really your limiting factor, not your garden, because you can only collect as much water off of your roof that you have roof for, right? So you're going to have to do that calculation about, it was like for every square foot of roof, you get about half a gallon of water during a 1-inch rainstorm. So different parts of Texas gets different amounts of rain. Here we're going to get more rain than someone further west. And if you're further east than North Texas, you're going to get more rain than we do here. So you're going to have to kind of think about how much precipitation is available for you to even capture, and then how much roof space you have. So for example, like I decided I also wanted to get it off my shed. I probably would get enough water directly off of just my roof out of my manifold system and my 2 supplemental barrels to be fine. But like I said, I'm the cat lady of rain barrels. I saw an opportunity to add more, so I added more to my system. And so it's really going to be your roof space. Now, if you have like not a shed, like where you do woodwork, a workshop. If you have like a workshop and you have maybe a building with a metal roof and you have more surfaces you can collect from, absolutely, you're going to have to, to get that 5,000 square foot garden, which is awesome, and I'm super jealous. You'll probably have to capture water from as many surfaces as you can. If you're in an urban setting, like in a neighborhood, you might want to see if you can put rain barrels on the front of your house, because I do not have rain barrels on the front. So I am not capturing every bit of water. I do not have a rain barrel in every single one of my downspouts.
Awesome. I think we're about 10 after, so I'll just ask one last one if that's okay with you, Helen. So I want to ask, do you put the for your manifold system, do you put the mosquito dunks just in the first barrel and it filters down? Is that how that works?
Yes, that is exactly right, and that's a great assessment. Because they are in the manifold system, once that bacteria dissolves in there, it can travel through the pipes. I do feel comfortable with that. But like, again, it is your comfort level. And, the other thing is when you fill up your bucket, I prefer a bucket over a watering can. Like I said, because number one, I'm impatient. Number two is I can also see the water as it comes into the barrel. So I can see if there's mosquito larvae in there when it fills up the bucket. And then because sometimes, I have to admit, I'll forget to put in my next dose of dumps. And so that I can see, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a mosquito larvae in here. And I add those dumps in there. Now, if that is not comfortable for you, you could cut more holes in the tops of the other barrels, and you can put a dunk in each one. There's nothing wrong with that. You'll have a little bit more overflow, that's available to you too, and you can absolutely do it that way.
Awesome. Well, the thanks and compliments are coming in fast. So thank you again, Helen, for taking the time out to show us your, like I said, robust and impressive rain gathering system.
Well, thank you, Jordan. I had a great time. Thank you, Nedra, for the warm introduction and for seeing you again. Thank you for everybody who joined us today. And also a special thanks to my husband, who's been my cameraman here. And he's also the one who did most of the labor to put that system together. Oh, and one thing he wanted me to share with you guys on the piping, and there was a question about piping. When you're using that PVC, we used PVC cement, and it comes in 2 cans, like at the hardware store. And we used that because we had the best results with that. When we tried some other stuff, we had some leaks and drips that happened. So when you're putting your pieces together, use PVC cement to put them together. And also you have to really think about your system and do a lot of measuring, because you are cutting lots of little pieces of pipe and you want them to fit together with your couplings and different things like that. So, that whole thing about measure twice, cut once, and plan out your system, like lay it down on the ground first to make sure you have everything right. You can even put it together and take it apart, right? To make sure that all your lengths are correct. So make sure you do that if you want to do the manifold system like that. And I will say it can get expensive because you're buying a lot of pipe, and a lot of the couplings and some of the accessories are what's really expensive. The 2-inch pipe itself is not that expensive. It's all of those other pieces like the shutoff valves and different things like that can add up. So just make sure, price everything out and stay within your budget. And you can also have a cool system.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Helen. Thank you everybody for joining us. Reminder, if you want to go back and check any of the previous parts of this, the video will go live on our YouTube as soon as we end this meeting. We'll also send a link out to everybody who registered as well. I did post a link to Thursday's program where we're going to hear about environmental quality from some of our state officials. But other than that, Nedra, do you have anything you want to add before we call it an afternoon?
No, but I just want to say thank you, Helen, for providing us this very informative presentation and just enjoying your outdoors as well and the knowledge that you have. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Helen, again. And we will see you all next time. Have a good afternoon.